Mr. Speaker, I rise today to speak to the greatest border crisis in American history. 10 million illegal border crossers have entered the United States since Joe Biden was inaugurated 3 short years ago. More than individually the population of 41 U.S. states, and almost as many people illegally entering in 3 years as the population of this state. In December alone, just a month ago, over 300,000 people were allowed into the country illegally, and this administration has gutted our nation's immigration enforcement system with no concern for public safety. I'm going to give you some examples of that. In spite of the exponential increase in illegal migrations to this country, there has been a 57% decrease in the arrest of criminal aliens, and there has been a 67% decrease in the deportation of criminal aliens. Tens of thousands of criminal aliens live in communities all across this country, and the Biden administration has no concern for public safety or for national security. In state prisons alone, there are 1,579 criminal aliens in our state prisons with ICE detainers alone. 241 child molesters illegally here who molested Georgia children. 182 murderers in our state prison illegally here who murdered Georgia citizens. 179 rapists illegally here who've raped Georgia people, Georgia women. 116 aggravated child molesters, and the list goes on and on. I'll put it on your desk tomorrow. My friends, this issue affects all Georgians and all Americans.
War Room, Gwinnett County, the people's voice, keeping you informed. War Room, Gwinnett County, the people's voice.
Thank you for tuning in to War Room, Gwinnett County. I'm your host, Antonio Jones. We're back with another episode. What you just saw was Chairman of Human Relations and Aging of the Georgia Legislature laying out all of the things that are going on as far as illegal aliens that are impacting Georgia, just Georgia alone. His name is Jesse Petraea. If you think that what's going on in the southern border is not going to be a problem for every single county and every city, single city, then you have to be mistaken. So every single candidate that we bring on to the war room, we're going to ask them questions as it relates to the border. There's also information that came out on MSNBC that the debt, according to the chairman of the Federal Reserve, that I think in 2030, we're going to add $144 trillion over the period of the next 20 years. Illegal immigration is going to directly impact this because they're trying to give these people, $3,000-$4,000 a month. They'll be going to our prison system, some of them, our school system. So there are going to be massive impacts on the community. I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but Senator Colton Moore received a tip from someone at the Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson Airport that there was a secret room where migrants, illegal aliens are being set up in like a holding room for them as they fly in and be distributed I guess all over Georgia. And he's heard that up to 10,000 that they know about has come through that room alone. Now, this particular room, and this video is all over Twitter, X. He's been on a countless other podcasts to share what he experienced there. But the person that was guarding the room tried to wrestle his phone away. But we'll put the links up and everything in the description. But this is happening right here in Georgia. So it would behoove us to ask questions to our local leaders. Start asking questions now, because this is going to have an impact. And hopefully we will have leadership here in the county that are going to address this problem in the right way and protect the citizens here. So if this is your first time to come in the War Room, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. We call ourselves the People's Voice, the People's Square. This is where you can come and get information, ask questions, and review the candidates that are running for office. A couple of areas we cover: sheriff's office, the city council, county commission, school board, and the district attorney's office. And also, there's another video out of illegal aliens up in New York that attacked a police officer, and I believe Alvin Bragg let them out. And one of the illegal aliens, there are several cameras after they let them out. He showed everybody how he feels about America when he flipped the bird at the camera. So we're not getting the best people that are coming across this border. And if people that want to come to America, that's fine. We're as Alex Jones says, we're the best house in a bad neighborhood. We're not a perfect country, but there's a reason that people want to come to America. But you can't break the law, in the name of, trying to come to a better place for a better life. We can't allow people to break the law in the name of that. We have to enforce our border laws, and we should not be expanding any programs locally to pay for this. So I know that Marjorie Taylor Greene has sent a criminal referral over for Fonnie Willis and the shenanigans that's going on down in Atlanta. A whole nother topic or another story. But the district attorney ties into the responsibilities that happen on a local level. This impacts the morale of the police department, the sheriff's department, definitely. If you have, just like Alvin Bragg, speaking of this border situation, if you have a rogue DA that's doing everything except what they're supposed to be doing in a city municipality, it affects the morale of different offices it surrounds. And it also sends a message to criminals that they can come into a city and do exactly what it is that they want. So today we're bringing back a gentleman that's running for Gwinnett County Sheriff by the name of Baron Reinhold. And we want to get, first of all, welcome back to War Room, Baron. I wanted to have you come on and let the people know where you are as far as your campaign and everything like that. And what are your thoughts on the impacts of what's going on at the southern border and what you saw, or what the video that Colton Moore released of over 10,000 illegal aliens coming through our airport right here in Georgia?
Well, thanks, Antonio. It's great to be back on your show. I'll try to do those in order. So first, the campaign, things are really moving along. Going to a lot of different civic groups and getting a lot of movement on Facebook and Twitter and answering emails. Fundraisers are planned and kicking off. So that's all good. It's always good to hear from civic groups, and because a lot of questions that you just posed are brought up there. And so, yeah, as far as the human trafficking and as far as coming across the border illegally, I grew up in Miami, so this is not new. I was down there in the 70s and 80s, and when Cuba, when Fidel was emptying all of his jails, and we had the Cuban illegal Cuban influx. Interestingly enough, the people who were most mad about that were the people who fled Cuba when Castro first took over, because they were the professionals that came in and kind of made Miami what it is today. And then when people just the jails are emptied out and they come in, it's a huge problem. Now we've got all kinds of people coming across our border. We don't know their backgrounds because they're not being vetted. So it would be foolish to think that there aren't terrorist cells. Every enemy that we have is, I'm sure, funneling as many people as they can into this country, so that at some point in the future they'll be called upon to act out, and probably nationally, which will be horrific. It'll probably make 9/11 look like small potatoes, which that scares me, because I spent most of my 35 years combating terrorism overseas. So that's a problem. Obviously, there's a lot of bad actors that are just, part of the drug trade. And and then there's just people who want to leave the countries that they're in. I mean, certainly I've been to almost every bad third world country that you could, probably come up with. And I understand why people want to leave their country and come here.
So Baron, let me ask you, we saw in the cold open,
Right.
the congressperson in Georgia, shout out to Jesse Petrea for bringing this to the House floor down there. So there are over 1,500 and something, I would argue probably more, just in our state prisons of people that have committed crime, illegal aliens right here. So what can be done in the capacity of the sheriff? How do we deal with this, as far as the jail and everything's surrounded? What kind of information do you have?
Well, I mean, first of all, you have to be, you have to want to do it. The sad thing to me is when Sheriff Taylor.
So wait, yeah, he eliminated 287G, but go ahead. Right.
Well, you're right. I mean, the quote the first day in office was, "What we will not be doing is notifying ICE of anybody's immigration status in the jail or any of our facilities." So, okay, so if you have the reason that they're at the jail is because they've been caught committing a crime. And then there's a Georgia law on the books, OCGA 42, TAC 4, TAC 14, that requires all jailers to use reasonable effort to determine the immigration status of foreign-born prisoners and report that status, to the federal government. And there's also another statute on the books that has to do with, preventing, sanctuary, or enforcing laws that are, preventing you from becoming a sanctuary city. And so, pretty much from day one, Sheriff Taylor committed to not doing that. So he's committed to committing, breaking two Georgia laws. And so
anytime that happens,
your
Baron,
number one job is to protect the citizens of the county. Yeah. And yet the people who've been arrested and put in jail, you won't do, and you turn them back out on the street or won't hold them when there's a DHS detainer or ICE detainer to come and pick them up, then you're putting your people at risk, which is the exact opposite of what you're charged to do. So
the only recourse for that, Baron, is what is recourse for that? Is the only recourse is to wait for 2 or 4 years to pass by of inept activity to get this guy to office? Because it's like, if this is a Georgia statute, then the sheriff himself should not have discretion on whether they're going to enforce the law or not. I mean, that's what they're hired to do, right? So you guys are hired to do.
Right. So most people don't understand what what the role of the sheriff is and can't articulate the difference between a chief of police and a sheriff. So the sheriff is the senior law enforcement officer in the county, and they're a constitutional office. They're not the department of, the sheriff. They're the sheriff's office or the office of the sheriff. And so it's a constitutionally mandated position in Georgia. So your office, just like the office of the governor, is an office, and there's a lot of discretion and a lot of power that comes along with that. And, and there's also not a lot of accountability other than we, the people. So that's why it's so important for everybody to understand what is actually going on in their counties and who's actually responsible for it. When it comes to law enforcement, you might see the local police department or the county police department, but ultimately the senior law enforcement officer that should be driving issues is the sheriff. And so, when you see all these statistics in Gwinnett, just in a downfall and there's a lot of things that contributed, but ultimately, just like I articulated, if you come in and your stated goal is you're no longer going to do these things that are going to keep your people safe, the people of your county, that's a huge problem. It's also a huge problem because the other thing that he committed to on day one was, dissolving the rapid response team in the jails. So what that did was, the day that he took over, I was talking to jailers that were on duty that night, And the rapid response team, when things get out of control in the jail, they need to regain control. And in order to do that, they need to send people in there and have, people go in and physically get people back in their cells and so forth. And so the way the jailers found out that night is when inmates' family members were calling them and telling them that that this had just been enacted. None of the jailers knew, and there were no response. There was nothing put in place. So if they hit the wall or they hit the alarm for the rapid response, they weren't allowed to do it anymore. So what do you replace that with? There was nothing put in place. So you're putting your jailers at risk. And then as the jailers didn't have a rapid response force anymore, then their injury rate started skyrocketing. And from the first month, that was the start of the people leaving the sheriff's department.
So the plug was pulled on this, and this decency to make an announcement to everybody didn't even happen.
No. And there was nothing put in place to replace that. There was no direction given. So the jailers are left, hey, if we don't have a response team when things are getting out of control, what do we do? And the people that are supposed to be instructing the new guys and gals are just like looking at each other like, I don't know. And when they tried to get a policy put in place, people were actually reprimanded for questioning the authority of the sheriff. So you cannot operate like that. You can't have somebody who's in charge of protecting the people of the county, and they won't do things that are required by law, that are obvious. You should want to get people who are breaking the law out of your if you can get them into federal hands and out of your hands, that means you aren't going to have to house them and pay for that out of pocket. So that's a big win, because the taxpayers aren't having to do that. And so you just kind of look at all these things, and it ends up being just what your worldview is and what your priority is. If your priorities are to protect your people, and you look at everything else being downstream from that, then you'll do the right things and prioritize well. But if there's some other objective or ulterior motive, then you're in the wrong job. And hopefully the people are waking up to that they see the disastrous statistics from pretty much in almost every category. You're seeing massive increases in crime in every category. And so, there's a lot of things that contribute to that. It makes it much more challenging when the federal government is allowing 10 million people into the country, and a certain percentage of them are criminals. Yes, that makes it hard for the community. But what you need to do is do the things that are going to get at those problems, and also you are responsible for coordinating the effort amongst all the county police and the individual cities to handle that. And that is obviously a challenging job, but when you won't commit to the basic stuff of getting, here's an example, because people call me all the time. They're either former or current law enforcement. I got a call. It's been a couple months ago now, but it was a Saturday morning. I'm having a cup of coffee, and the individual said, "Hey, did you see what's on the news?" I was like, "No." And they said, "Well, ICE just raided an apartment building, and the individual that they were after was there. He lit the place on fire, burnt down a wing of the apartment building. Almost, several people almost died from the fire." And then he went on to tell me that individual just got out of the Gwinnett County Jail just a short time before, and he had a DHS detainer on him. So they were going to come and pick him up, but our sheriff let him out. That news doesn't get out, but it needs to get out. And if programs like this give it the opportunity, but that should be stuff when your citizens are being put at risk because of your policies, then that's a huge problem. And every person in Gwinnett deserves to know that. And you vote how you want to vote, but if you want that changed, then you need to vote for change.
It just doesn't seem to be an appetite to deal with it, just even amongst, the sheriff's office is one place. And back to what you were saying about the jail, for the program to just be pulled as far as the rapid response team, rather than, maybe Sheriff Taylor felt like this is something that need to be kind of rolled back over time or something like that. But to completely pull a program like that that's in place for a reason, people people commit crimes or are convicted or charged with certain things or in jail, but they don't deserve to have a lot of these things that are going on either. It's not just the protection of the officers, but there are people that may be in jail that can maybe waiting to put their case before a court of law and have something, a conviction or adjudication of a particular situation. They don't deserve that either. So this is about public safety and as a whole. But when you have someone in office, like that, who puts their names all over the cars, it just seems to appear to a lot of self-glorification and not putting the office first and the things that need to be done to keep the public safe and to have success in the job that he was constitutionally hired to do, or voted in by the people.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I've read articles that said that Sheriff Taylor agreed that 87G 287G was a good and useful tool, but he said it was, and this was when he was running in 2019, but he said it's just not being done properly. So if he acknowledges that it's a good tool but it's not being done properly in his opinion, then what does a good leader do? A good leader doesn't come in and flush the good tool in the toolkit. If he thinks it's not being used properly, then you give more training on how to use it properly. But there's obviously some other agenda there, because he took the tool and threw it into the swamp. But
what could be beneficial to putting more strain on your deputies and putting the people that are in jail in even more danger because the utilization of resources for individuals who are causing problems that have not even paid into the system, wouldn't, the common sense thing to do, and I think many may agree on this, is to expel the illegals by, trying to get them over into the hands of the federal government or what have you, or using some type of a forcing function to make them deal with it, because it's causing injury to the people that are in the jails or that are Gwinnett County potential taxpayers and the citizens around. Our resources are being burnt up and also causing us more potential harm down the road.
Right. So obviously, for the taxpayers' benefit, that's a very important consideration. But if not more important, is the fact that if you turn them loose, like was done in this situation, okay, now almost a bunch of people die, all this property gets burnt up. And why? Because you're refusing to enforce laws and you've got some other agenda other than protecting the people you're charged to protect. So you have to have somebody who's passionate about essentially, rolling it all the way back. I've said this repeatedly. You have to have ultimately somebody who's passionate about the Constitution. If you're not passionate about protecting first and foremost, the civil and constitutional rights of every citizen in your county against whoever's trying to violate them, then you have no business being in the job, and everything else runs down from that. That needs to be your priority, period.
That's right. So let's take a short break, and we'll be back here. Just hold for a second, Barry.
Okay.
War Room, Gwinnett County. The people's voice, keeping you informed. War Room, Gwinnett County.
Accelerate your business goals and brand presence on the World Wide Web by logging on to SafewayHost.store to purchase domain names, web hosting, email hosting, SSL, and more. We have 24/7 customer service and support available to our clients. Get started today so you can achieve your business goals by increasing your web presence. Log on to SafewayHost.store today. That's SafewayHost.store.
War Room, Gwinnett County. The people's voice, keeping you informed. War Room, Gwinnett County, the people's voice.
If you're just tuning in, we our cold open at the beginning of the show was Jesse Petraea. He's the chairman of Human Relations and Aging in the Georgia legislature. And what he brought forth was pretty stunning about what's going on as far as the illegal aliens in the state of Georgia, just here alone. He went through a number of stats. Matter of fact, let's play that. Let me get that cold open queued up so you guys can see it again.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to speak to the greatest border crisis in American history. 10 million illegal border crossers have entered the United States since Joe Biden was inaugurated 3 short years ago. More than individually the population of 41 U.S. states, and almost as many people illegally entering in 3 years as the population of this state. In December alone, just a month ago, over 300,000 people were allowed into the country illegally, and this administration has gutted our nation's immigration enforcement system with no concern for public safety. I'm going to give you some examples of that. In spite of the exponential increase in illegal migrations to this country, there has been a 57% decrease in the arrest of criminal aliens, and there has been a 67% decrease in the deportation of criminal aliens. Tens of thousands of criminal aliens live in communities all across this country, and the Biden administration has no concern for public safety or for national security. In state prisons alone, there are 1,579 criminal aliens in our state prisons with ICE detainers alone. 241 child molesters illegally here who molested Georgia children. 182 murderers in our state prison illegally here who murdered Georgia citizens. 179 rapists illegally here who've raped Georgia people, Georgia women. 116 aggravated child molesters, and the list goes on and on. I'll put it on your desk tomorrow. My friends, this issue affects all Georgians and all Americans.
So, Baron, that House floor speech by Representative Petraea was quite stunning, and it's just mind-boggling of why we still have people that are committing crimes that are illegal aliens right here in our jail. And people need to understand this right here. As taxpayers, we're paying to house and feed and medical treatment, of rapists, people that are molesting our youth and all kinds of stuff. And it's ridiculous to be having to do that. And plus put a strain on the officers and, people that are running a jail and everything like that, bogging the system down. What does this do when it comes to people that are awaiting trial for different things who may have been in there waiting? It just bogs the system down in all kinds of ways, and can make it pretty tough on any set of leadership. But again, what we don't understand is, like Baron just said, Kibo admitted that this was a pretty effective program, a pretty good program or whatever. And when he gets in, that's one of the first things he do is get rid of it. So what's the replacement for that? Has he mentioned anything that's supposed to replace that, to your knowledge, Baron, as far as dealing with illegal aliens that are arrested that from committing crimes? Has this been replaced?
No, it hasn't. The first thing, like I said, day one did away with the rapid response team, did away with 287G, painted all the cars with his name, and then put the better part 7 or so bail bonds companies out of business.
So wait, say that again for everybody that might not know that by now. Put his name on what did he do?
Well, yeah, I mean, again, utilizing taxpayers' resources, put his name on the back of every county sheriff's car, again, taxpayers' expenses. So that was obviously one of his priorities, along with making his deputies more vulnerable, which resulted in about half of the force leaving over the last 3 years. I mean, I was talking to a sheriff in a neighboring county at an event, and he said, "Hey, Baron, I just hired 5 Gwinnett County deputies this week." I was talking to him on a Friday. So, if you do the math, the number of deputies we lost, we're down to about half of the deputies we had when Sheriff Taylor came in, because they won't work for him unless they need a couple more years for their pension to vest, or their. I mean, when people have a choice, and when law enforcement's in high demand everywhere, given the opportunity between an untenable working environment where they're not being protected in the jails and so forth, and going someplace else, even for less money, they leave. So right now we're down about 50%. We've lost, well over 200, deputies in the last 3 years, closer to 300. And yet our budget's gone from $105 million to about $170 million. So with half the force.
So more money, less officers. I mean, less deputies and everything.
And we're wearing them out. I mean, everybody's mandated overtime, and we've gone from an average shift, which was a safe number, at about 53 people working the jail, because we have one of the biggest jails in the country. A normal force in 2019 was about 53 people. Now we're down to in the mid 20s on an average shift, from what I've told from people that are actually showing up for work. So and we're shipping, we have shipped, I believe, up to 400 of our inmates to other jails at incredible expense, because you're paying a daily rate to have another jail house your people, your inmates, and then you have to bring them back for all of their any type of thing at their court dates. So there's additional expenses, manpower, not because our jail's not big enough. It's because we don't have the bodies to man it properly and so forth. So everywhere you look at this, it's a disaster for the taxpayer. It's a disaster for the actual people who are incarcerated, because it's more dangerous when you have less control of the jail. So more injury rates, the death rates inside our jails are the highest that they've ever been, and are pretty alarming. There have been a couple of stories. There haven't been any follow-ups that I know of, but in 2021, there was a couple stories that came out about the alarming number of deaths that we've had. And now, if you hear about it, it's back channel. It very rarely makes the news at all. So I hear about it, but it's not widely known or widely publicized. But we've got a real problem in the jails. So it's not due to lack of funding. It's due to everything ultimately boils down to leadership.
Okay, you answered the question. So you commit that a lot of this, or most of, not all of this, is based on the decisions that have been made since Sheriff Taylor took over.
No, you say that? I didn't understand.
I said, so you're saying that basically that a good bit of this, or if not all of the disasters that have been happening, is because of decisions being made, not resources, or, hey, we need more money and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you see, just the statistic that you just played, when you have a 67%, drop in deportations, well, okay, that's linked to 287G. Now, I don't agree with 100% of 287G, and I've talked to ICE agents, recently retired, 30-year plus guys, and I think that there's things that you can do to get 95% of the bang for the buck without having to pay the $3 million price tag, or having your deputies deputized as ICE agents. But you can get the bang for the buck where you've identified criminals, and you're getting them out of your jails, so that A, you don't have to house them at taxpayers' expense, and B, they are out of your jurisdiction, so to speak. So now,
so it doesn't have to be 287G, but we don't need to end it. But there's a couple of things. I mean, it can be redone basically a different way, but we don't want to get into a situation to where we're not doing our constitutional duty, which is to, first of all, defend our borders in the state as well, and expel illegals that, especially when they're causing problems.
Right. I mean,
Okay.
The common moniker is to serve and to protect. So you're serving your people and you're protecting your people. And so that should be the focus of all of your assets and all of your efforts. If you've got that and you're knocking that out of the ballpark and everything, you're the model for, the state and for the nation at doing, blocking and tackling and protecting your people. And okay, then if you want to add additional programs, hey, great. But if you're failing to do that, and you're in all of the statistics, show that, then continue to learn to block and tackle. I mean,
Right.
this is not, I mean, this is basic. So you got to keep the main thing, and
Essentially, we just want the job done in my capacity as a citizen. We want the job done. We want it to be done effectively and as humane as possible, but not negating keeping the law-abiding citizens safe.
sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, let's see what else. You got anything else? I know you got some events and things lined up that you'll be doing coming up. And do you want to share with the audience on, well, we'll give your link and all of that kind of stuff, but any other stuff that you have coming up on how they can support your campaign and everything?
I mean, I'm doing multiple events, actually mostly per day. But I've got, all kinds of, civic interactions. If anybody out there wants me to come out and talk, or, if you just have, if you want to talk to me, personally, I put my, personal cell phone number, I put out my email address. I come out to groups, listen to what people have to say and what is the most important things on their mind. I mean, almost universally, it's, protecting, their families and their kids, especially in the school systems. And the drug problems that are, a massive issue here, the trafficking in children. I mean, you and I were at an event not too long ago where they were talking about and shedding light on the massive problem that trafficking in children is in our school system.
Yeah, with Street. Shout out to Faith Condona and her whole team over there, Street Grace. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that was shocking to hear. I mean, you think, okay, yeah, there's got to be some bad stuff going on, but how rampant it is just unbelievable. So yeah, we've got a lot of issues here, and yes, it doesn't help that the borders are wide open and hundreds of thousands of people are in every state that not, I'm not saying that all of them are obviously breaking the law coming here without the proper documentation and doing it the proper way. So that's breaking the law. But when they go on to do violent acts like you were talking about, up in New York City or wherever, or this, the guy who, I just referenced earlier about, burning down the apartment complex to try to get away from ICE. I mean, those are people that are, killing people, or attempting to, or, doing drug deals and this and that. So all those things are compounding the issue. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with the sheriff, and you either figure out a way to get, maximize your efforts and coordinate those across all law enforcement within the county and outside the county, to get the best bang for the buck to protect the citizens, or you don't. And that's on you. You own those statistics. When you're the commanding officer of a ship or a squadron, you run the ship aground, guess what? You get relieved of command because you didn't train your people properly. You could have been asleep in your stateroom. It's irrelevant. Your people ran the ship aground and you trained your people, and you're responsible for that. And, when Teddy Roosevelt said the buck stops here, he understood that because he was a military man, which is, of anybody who understands that, it's, the military. I was actually kind of funny because I got asked, it was a good question, but I don't think people think about it that much. I got asked the question, so you were military, you weren't law enforcement your whole career, so why do you think that you can, be a great sheriff? And I kind of chuckled a little bit because I was like, okay, first of all, our current sheriff was law enforcement his whole career, and look at the job that he's doing. So, but the reality is 31 of 46 presidents served in the military. Only 15 haven't. Of those, 18 of the 46 had combat experience. And since World War II, we've had 14 presidents. 10 of them served in the military. 7 of those 10 were naval officers. So basically, half the presidents we've had since World War II were naval officers. So, I'm not saying that,
And they basically in charge of commander over the military.
well, what I'm saying is, the being a sheriff, you're the CEO of a law enforcement agency. Your job is to make that a well-oiled machine. And so you need to be able to manage that and to manage it well and to build teams. And, that's my background. My background is, building those teams and award-winning teams and teams that are, are awarded and emulated. And obviously, with those statistics about our president, I mean, I'm pretty sure as hard as job as the sheriff is of a 1 million-person county, being the president of a country with 330 million people is probably a bit harder. And of those, most of them were military officers. So, there is something to be said for having done a career basically with your whole job is putting your life on the line and running organizations and managing assets and pointing towards the enemy and engaging them aggressively to protect the country or whatever people that are immediately around you. So, that's exactly the same skill set you need to be an effective leader as a sheriff. And that's why I jumped into this. We are in a constitutional crisis. We're in a crisis with 10 million people invaded our country and are all over our country. We're going to have problems that we've never seen before. And if we're not preparing for them, and the next leader of this county is not preparing to take on those challenges, it's going to cost lives, and that's just fact. We're going to have.
One other thing. So my wife, on the sidebar, she watches. Of course, she follows the show and everything. So she says, well, you got to, talking about me, you got a funny personality. You need to have a joke. And I said, look, we have an order of business right now. And, she meant it in a good spirit of everything. Because everybody knows that I'm pretty much a jokester, But this right here is serious business. And on that note, dude, I'm glad you got back from Florida, man, and put the lemonade down and got back to work. Yeah, because I was wondering where you was at for a while, but I knew you was tending the business and everything like that.
Yeah, my mom's 82nd birthday, so the kids flew down to wish her a happy one and spend a few days. So that was a good time down there.
Yeah, well, that's pretty good. So what are you gonna say? Because anytime we start talking about deportation, just in any room, you start talking about deportation, illegal aliens, people get so uptight. And I personally don't understand it. It should be really a simple thing. Hey, you come to the country, you do it the right way. So what are you gonna say when the people come to you and start throwing everything in the book at you? Because you've taken a constitutional stance when it comes to that. What would your response be to that?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you this. Like I said, I've been to so many third world countries that, the places that I've gone throughout my career are the places where the emergencies are. But my first tour, the first place I went was up to the Gulf right after Gulf One to enforce the embargoes. But that's when Somalia cooked off the first time. So, I'm flying down to Somalia, which they were importing food from Ethiopia. That's how poor they were. So, that was a disaster down there, humanitarian crisis. And so I am very empathetic about the plight of people in these disastrous countries. And they want to get out of there. They just want their families to survive. And I understand, I'm not saying that I'd do anything differently. If you have no means, I understand why everybody is coming here and why it's so difficult. It takes years and years and years to come here legally, typically. And, if you're trying to, your family's starving, this and that, I get all of that. But having said that, the job requires making hard decisions, and it also requires making the right decisions for your, for the people of your county. And what that means is, you don't do away with things that are effective tools and that are things that enable you to protect the people that you're charged to protect. And that's just facts. So, how to do that, what areas you can use discretion when you're doing stuff. I mean, there's always going to be people that lie about stuff like, okay, the stuff that was been, put out in 2019 was, some of that stuff was a total joke that, that law enforcement's, stalking around in the middle of the night trying to, grab people off the street and this. I mean, that was nonsense.
Propaganda.
Yes, there's those things where, people get, the examples that they use that made them seem normative, that this whole thing is sending people who aren't breaking the law other than just having come here illegally, which wasn't breaking our laws, that we're rounding them up and separating them from their families. Okay, did that happen on occasion? Yes. Was that the thrust of the effort? No. The thrust of the effort was somebody gets arrested for doing something illegal and then they get found out that they're not here legally. And then, what do you do after that? So
yeah. Not quite like stop and frisk. People criticized Rudy Giuliani for years for doing that, but it was effective. There might have been some situations to where it might have been a few bad encounters, and maybe it was on behalf of the effort. But look at New York now, post Rudy Giuliani.
And that's why it's even more important why I'm so focused on the Constitution, because here's the other piece of that. You need to protect the people's rights, which also there's a tension there. So you're in charge of law enforcement, but you're also in charge of making sure that people's constitutional rights aren't violated by law enforcement, which you are. So you're supposed to police yourself and your people. You're supposed to take care of, the constituents or the people of your county. And you're also supposed to make sure that the Constitution is followed by any, authority farther up. So if a unconstitutional executive order comes down or an unconstitutional law, then you have to know the Constitution well enough to say, okay, we're not doing that here because it violates the Constitution here, here, and here. And so whatever that thing is that was, directed either or a new regulation that's put in place that's not constitutional, you have to be willing to stand up and say, we're not enforcing that in this county. And it won't be enforced on my citizens, period. And that's a pretty big stand, but we're seeing that. We're seeing it at the state level. You see, Governor Abbott pushing back on, hey, you've let 10 million people into this country. I'm going to protect my state. Why he didn't do that 4 years ago, I don't know. But he's doing it now, which is good. You see these other governors that are saying, okay, we're going to suspend the Second Amendment in these different areas. Well, you don't have the authority to do that because you didn't, the Constitution wasn't changed. So as a sheriff, I'm going to enforce, the Constitution, which means your law or your executive order will not be enforced in this county. So you need to have, the willingness to put it out there and to push back on whatever authority is there when it violates the Constitution. That's a big job.
Right.
So the opposite side of that is you can't come into office. And if the Constitution says our job is to protect life, liberty, and property, and the first day you come into office, you shut down 7 bail bonds companies, which is life, liberty, and property. Okay, you pretty much have this wrong. Unless they're doing felonious acts, if you just don't like them, okay, I don't care. Who are you, King George? No. So if they're breaking the law, arrest them and put them in jail. If they're not, then,
let them carry on.
If they're doing something you don't like, but it's not against the law, then talk to them about it. But the bottom line is, all those things that happened, week one of which was destroying 7 businesses, that's a big deal. You violated the Constitution. You may not have violated the law because you have to sign off on whether they can work in, whether bail bonds company can work in your county or not. But you certainly violated the Constitution in the sense that you destroyed their life, liberty, and property. And oh, by the way, it doesn't look really good when you hit all of them up for a campaign contribution and, said essentially, hey, you're going to contribute or, it's not going to go well with you after the campaign. And then 7 of them disappear. I mean, that's a big deal. So yeah. Even if you believe the story that, Sheriff Taylor said was, oh, well, that's not what I meant, that I was putting them out of business because I told them that they didn't contribute to my campaign, and they weren't going to support me. The optic at a minimum was bad.
Yeah, and I mean, it squares with a number of other complaints that people have had about the sheriff.
If we're called to avoid the appearance of evil, biblically, that certainly didn't avoid the appearance of evil. I mean, I never in 1,000 years would have gone up to somebody who I had, the ability to, to basically, destroy their life.
Abuse your power.
I would never ask them for a campaign. If they wanted to send something in unsolicited from me or anybody that worked for me, that's one thing. But to go out and actively go in their office and tell them, I want you to support me because otherwise, this, it's not going to go well for you, kind of. That is a bad, you're not avoiding the appearance of evil.
Right. It's not going to go well for them. But hey, if we arrest you and you're here illegally and you've committed a crime and or allegedly, then we're not really too focused on that. Absolutely incredible. So what's your next? You got an event, particular events coming up? Did you want to let people know where the next one is?
I'm doing. I'm doing a big fundraiser on the 22nd. To try to essentially get the word out. I've got to start getting the word out in print, and unfortunately, not everybody in the county tunes into this, although we're working on it. But we got.
By the way, a shameless plug, I guess, by me. Make a contribution if you can, whatever you can, $5-10 to War Room. We just have a Cash App set up right now, War Room GC, and you should see the logo. So make a contribution. We'll make good use of funds. We need to get some signs and different things. Everything that's happened with the podcast right now has just kind of been on my own nickel, and I don't mind doing that because we're called to serve and do what we can for our neighbors. So whether I get a nickel towards this effort is going to go on because this is what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing right now to try to support people that are trying to do good. But go ahead, Barrett. I ain't mean to take over here.
So yeah, there's so many stories to get out. The state of the real state of affairs of things by the people who are currently or formerly in the sheriff's office as deputies. So
okay, we got restored. Hold on a second. All right, so it looks like, let me see. Looks like we're back. So Baron, let me know if let's see here. Know if we can get Baron back on the line. You guys, hold on one second, because I want to try to get him back up if we can. See, you guys got to make that donation that I need. It's just a one-man crew right now, and I don't mind doing it that way. But there are a number of challenges from time to time when it's that way. But give me a second here, and let's see if we can get Baron back up and rolling really quick. But we were going through, while I'm trying to get Baron back up, we were going through, if you just tuned in, the problems and the issues that the southern border could be potentially making for us locally, how it can impact us, some of the things that we can do, and in his capacity as a sheriff, some of the things that he would do to try and protect us as the citizens, the people in the jail, take some of the strain, the extra strain off his officers that this type of thing can or would cause for him or for us as citizens because of the exacerbation of what's going on the southern border. Let me get this code in for him. Trying to multitask, guys, so just hang on if you can, because we're getting ready to wrap this up. And sorry about anytime you're dealing with the internet, you just kind of don't know what you're gonna get at any given time. But we appreciate your patience. Let's see if we can get Baron, get him logged back on. I just sent him over all the information. In the meantime, let me play the code open one more time so you guys can see what the congressperson down on the House floor in Georgia had to say about the invasion of the southern border and how it has impacted our jails here.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to speak to the greatest border crisis in American history. 10 million illegal border crossers have entered the United States since Joe Biden was inaugurated 3 short years ago. More than individually the population of 41 U.S. states and almost as many people illegally entering in 3 years as the population of this state. In December alone, just a month ago, over 300,000 people were allowed into the country illegally, and this administration has gutted our nation's immigration enforcement system with no concern for public safety. I'm going to give you some examples of that. In spite of the exponential increase in illegal migrations to this country, there has been a 57% decrease in the arrest of criminal aliens, and there has been a 67% decrease in the deportation of criminal aliens. Tens of thousands of criminal aliens live in communities all across this country, and the Biden administration has no concern for public safety or for national security. In state prisons alone, there are 1,579 criminal aliens in our state prisons with ICE detainers alone. 241 child molesters illegally here who molested Georgia children. 182 murderers in our state prison illegally here who murdered Georgia citizens. 179 rapists illegally here who've raped Georgia people, Georgia women. 116 aggravated child molesters, and the list goes on and on. I'll put it on your desk tomorrow. My friends, this issue affects all Georgians and all Americans.
All right, I wanted to play that cold open again. We've got Barron back. We had a couple technical issues or what have you. But I wanted to play that cold open again, so to burn that in you guys' memory of what's happening, not just at the southern border, but how this can affect us here locally. Senator Colton Moore, if you guys have not saw the video of Senator Colton Moore, he received a tip at the Hartsfield-Jackson airport that there was a private room where illegal aliens were flying into that were being held right here in Georgia. And it doesn't seem like I haven't heard, so I don't want to make any misassumptions, but we need to have an appetite. The governor and Chris Carr, they need to be right on this. There needs to be an investigation happening, and we've got an open session right now. I don't see why we can't dig right into this and see what's going on down there. The senator had to wrestle his phone away from the guy, and they had federal security or something there, allegedly, outside of the door protecting them. It was absolutely insane. We got to get on top of this, because all these illegal aliens would not be coming to the border to live at the border. Their intention is to get to the states. So the second thing is, if we're going to provide services, all this free food passing out up here in Gwinnett County that we're doing, the infrastructure is already, it appears to be catering to the idea of having these illegals come here. I mean, I've been looking and observing, and I've been to some of these free food lines or whatever just to kind of see what's going on, and it doesn't appear that the people that are going, I'm not saying, I can't say who has a need or not, but I'm seeing all kind of luxury cars and stuff pulling up. It's not adding up. It's not making a whole lot of sense to me. And nothing is free. So these resources are coming from somewhere. So we got Barron back, and we was trying to put a cap and put a button on the end of the show, and he was explaining that he has an event coming up. And you said it's February 22nd. Did you want to give that information?
It's February 22nd. Okay. We're doing it over at the Berkeley Hills Country Club. I'm going to be doing things at different barbecue places, different restaurants. I'm going to try to do something about monthly from now hopefully through the general. We'll get through the primary and then press on and just see ultimately where this ends. I mean, I believe that I was called to do this and to run for this position for a reason. Went through the law enforcement academy at age 57 on my own dime, which was an experience. But it's just one of these things. We're in a critical point in our nation's history, I believe. And I think that we need people, of principle, people of character, and we need people that understand the Constitution, and that are willing to uphold it, whatever that means, and are willing to protect the citizens of their county, whatever that means. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of people that will put. I mean, our founding fathers pledged their lives, their fortunes, and sacred honor to bring this country into existence. And now we can't get people to put down a 12 pack and stop watching TV for 10 minutes to right the ship. And we're at a point where people need to right the ship. The ship is upside down and sinking. And if we don't right it and get the water out of it, we got big problems. So my focused effort has been for the last year and will be, okay, we're going to get this thing on track in this county. And there's a lot of good people running for a lot of offices to try to save Gwinnett from the vector that it's been on the last several years. And people need to get on board, and make their voices heard, and spread the word to your neighbors. Hey, we need to support these people who are trying to save the county and really save our nation too. So, be all in. Get the civic duty isn't voting once every 4 years. The civic duty is, if you're not actively participating, then sitting around after the fact and complaining about what it is, the situation is, that's on you. You need to be part of the solution, if not running for office yourself, to make sure that things get on track and stay on track, or support the people that you believe are the best people to do that.
That's right. Well, Baron, appreciate you stopping by today. Can you tell people how to follow you, and links to your website? We'll get them up in
Sure.
the comment area and everything like that.
Great. Yeah, Facebook and Twitter are both Baron Ford Gwinnett, the number 4. My Gmail account is Baron Ford Gwinnett, but it's spelled FOR. So, and then my phone number is also it's on my website, which is baronfordgwinnett.com, and it's 402-960-6645. That's my personal cell. You can text me, call me up. We can chat. You can tell me if you agree, disagree, or just have some thoughts on things that are going on in your neck of the woods, or things that you think that you want to see out of the next sheriff, because ultimately it's about protecting the people in this county and doing what is right by them. And certainly the most important thing is knowing the Constitution and ultimately protecting the constitutional rights of everyone out there. So it'd be an honor to be in that position to do it.
Absolutely. Well, hold on for a second. We're gonna get things closed out. Baron, just hold for 1 second.
Sure.
All right, guys. That's Baron Reinhold. He's running for sheriff of Gwinnett County. We have a big choice to make that's coming up this November. We're gonna side with law and order, or we're gonna side with chaos and depravity. It's that simple. There's no other way to put it. And we need people that are going to go into office that's willing to stand up like Matt Gaetz did in Congress. And he was criticized and ridiculed for doing that, like Senator Colton Moore is doing. We need people in office that are going to be willing to not be invited to the party, that's going to be looked at as a crank for what they know is right and what they believe in. We're either going to have a civil society or we're not. That is what is on the ballot. Reach out to these candidates. They are pretty good about responding to you. At least most of the people that have come on the War Room thus far are not afraid to answer questions. And so feel free to reach out to them. And many of them have committed to, if they're elected or when they're elected, that they will still be willing to answer questions. Because what we're seeing right now in government, you can't get these guys to answer a question. They don't want to go on a record for doing anything hard to get things done that's going to be right for the people. This is not a Democrat and a Republican problem when it comes to law and order. You need to, us as citizens, we must look at the candidate and take a real true assessment to see if it aligns with what we want to happen. Take your own assessment. That's why we have the show. We do the War Room. If you have questions, you can always post them here. If you want to come on after the show, post them in the comments. The candidates are very good about having conversations and answering your questions. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe. We got a lot of work to do between now and the end of the year. We just want to give a shout out to everyone who's been sharing the content. Your voice is welcome on here anytime. You don't have to be running for something to be on a live on a War Room. We can come on here. We will be talking about the culture. The culture. We got to deal with the culture. That's going to be a really, really big deal, because the culture is what's being used to manipulate society right now. And we have gone into different groups or what have you, and the diversity talk and all of that, it's all tied to the culture and manipulating people as a result of how the culture has overtaken society in so many ways, especially our kids or what have you. Because nowadays you got to belong to some group, and every individual person needs individual representation. Isn't that antithetical to who we are as Americans? This is the melting pot. We got one national anthem. One national anthem for everybody. We don't need a black national anthem. We don't need an Asian national anthem. We need somebody who's going to represent everybody, whether it's the sheriff, the school board, doesn't matter. It don't need to be, we need to get this person here because this group doesn't have enough representation. What are you guys talking about when you say things like that? This is the diversity talk. We don't realize we have to listen to ourselves when we say things like that. Diverse is something that happens, but we should be putting people in office based on merit and their moral value. That's what's going to protect us in this county and in this nation. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Make a contribution to the War Room if you want to. Cash App is War Room GC. Just give whatever you can. I mean, if it's $1, $5, 25, whatever you want to do, contribute to the cause. We greatly appreciate it. And remember this Bible verse. This is not, I don't want to say it's the verse of the year or whatever, but it's Luke 1:37. It says, "For with God nothing shall be impossible."
War Room, Gwinnett County. The people's voice, keeping you informed. War Room, Gwinnett County. The people's voice.